I was so concerned, I seriously considered euthanizing it. That is how bad the dogs I saw. That is how bad I was thinking that this was. And I'm walking, this little newborn puppy, right? And I start walking around and I start crying because I'm so upset and I don't know what to do. Well, I'm walking around with this little puppy, right? I mean, like, yeah, right, I'm going to kill it, like in your dreams. You know, like in 2 minutes I'm practically lactating. I mean, there's no way. There is no way. That can't happen, by the way. There is no way. There is no way in the world I was going to euthanize this little puppy for something that might happen. I couldn't even, there's no way I was going to do it. So I hypothesized, I sort of sat down, I said, okay, what might be the problem? Frustration intolerance, touch hypersensitivity. Okay, why might that happen? Well, duh, are they ever frustrated? I mean, if you're the only puppy in a litter, duh, are you ever frustrated for the entire time you're nursing? No. So I got this little fake puppy. I found a little stuffed animal, and I called it torturing the puppy. 5 times a day, or some number around there, I would go in, and when Solo started to nurse, I would just push him off. Now, I mean, you've seen litters nursing. It's not pretty, right? Right? It's not always fun. I mean, so I kept doing that, and I'd push him off, and he'd get attached, and I'd push him off. It's actually sort of fun if you had a bad day. You know, sort of get some of your hostility out. And I did that a lot, and at 5 weeks old, I picked him up, and he growled at me. I take it real seriously when a 5-week-old puppy growls. Real serious, especially when I bred it. And I'm going to be responsible for it for the rest of its life. I thought, oh dear. And I had handled this puppy a whole lot. I really, really had. But you can't possibly replicate all the touch that a litter gets, right? So what I started doing is I just started using conditioning. I would take a little tasty, smelly treat. I would put it on his nose as he was asleep. And he'd start to wake up, and he would literally wake up sniffing. And while he was sniffing, and presumably in a happy internal state, because he liked what he was sniffing, I would touch him. Because all these dogs I saw were the dogs that when you touched them when they were sleeping, they'd growl or bite. He's a wonderful dog. He's 4 or 5 years old. Now, he could have been a wonderful dog anyway. Don't let us pretend that I did science. That's not science. That's a case study, right? I messed with one puppy. So, but think about it, and if you do have a single puppy, or you know of somebody, I don't see any harm in doing this, although there might be. If you can think of some, please tell me. And I certainly see there's a possibility of an advantage, and there's another PhD. See, that's 3. That's 3 already. Okay, weaning. I want to talk about weaning. This is one of Lassie's puppy playing tug of war with her tail. Lassie's ready. Look at her face. I love her face. Lassie does baleful better than any dog I've ever known. Lassie's ready to wean. And that's the reason this slide is here, is why are we not letting them do it? How many people do you know who, or you heard of, who are still, I have to wean the puppies now. I have to take the puppies away from the mother to dry her up. Why would that be? People do it all the time. I mean, it's still really, really common, right? Don't you know people who still do that? Where did that start? I don't get it. I don't have a clue why people do that. I think it's a serious problem because I would have it, and I would argue to you that there's a tremendous amount of important information that goes on during the weaning process. Let the bitch do it as long, and I've sent puppies home. She didn't start weaning these puppies until they were over 10 weeks old. Now, no, that's not true. She started. She didn't finish weaning these puppies until they were over 10 weeks old. She actually started very early stages at about 5 weeks. But she finished, she basically stopped letting them have any milk when they were about 10 weeks old. And the process in between, I think, is really an important process of development. One, it's another way to learn frustration tolerance. They're really frustrated. They want the milk. And not only do they not get it, but you know what mom does? The dams turn getting milk into a play session. And it's the coolest thing. It's one of the most fascinating aspects of canine behavior. I'm just fascinated by it. I have to wait a whole nother year before I can watch again. She's in the process of stopping her puppies from actually nursing off of her. And what happens, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I'm sure many of you have, is that a puppy starts to go, I mean, I'm not on 4 legs, right? But imagine, okay, I'm on 4 legs. Puppy starts to go here, and she doesn't want them to have access to her nipples, right? So imagine having that many. Have you ever just thought about having 8 or 10? They're good things, and they're bad things. Wow. Just an awe-inspiring thought. So she's down here, and they want to get here. And what they do, they all do, I mean, all the bitches I've had have done the same thing, is they turn their abdomen away, and they get their muzzle and their chest in front of their puppy, and they block the access to where the milk is, and they block the access with a play bow, and they start to play with the puppy, and they turn frustration into play. And it's really beautiful. And it's just fascinating. And there's a little cute inhibited muzzle bite that's part of play, that's also part of discipline, except in this case it's not discipline. In this case it's play. And that's when the dams start to play with their puppies. That's when it starts. Other dogs of my pack were playing with the puppies before Lassie was. And now maybe this is just my dogs. You're going to see, by the way, I have to apologize. You're going to see border collie after border collie after border collie after border collie. And the last seminar I did, somebody said, would you please show more breeds? I've had enough of your border collies. You guys, that's what's in my front lawn at 7 in the morning before I go to work when I have my camera out. So send me slides, send me slides. You know, anything you have another breed, I would be thrilled. But I'm not going to go breed more dogs of other breeds. You really don't want to breed a working Great Pyrenees, you know? I have a Pyrenees, but an unspayed working Pyrenees is a really stupid thing. Let's bring all the male canids into the sheep farm. Come on, coyotes, I'm in heat now. You know, it's just really stupid. So I can't breed her, she's quite spayed. But this process is fascinating and beautiful and I think important. I think it's a very important part of development. And I think it's a shame to artificially wean puppies. And I know what a lot of people do is they'll take the puppies away for X amount of time and then dry the bitch up and let them back. It's so much easier to let them do it. And you can send them home. I mean, I sent puppies home at 8 weeks when Bess was still nursing the others. As long as they're eating solid food, they're fine. I mean, they're fine. And you don't worry about mastitis. The bitch just slowly dries up. It just works out so much better. And just for a whole lot of different aspects to it. So let's talk about socialization. That is a Great Pyrenees, and yes, that's a lamb. I want to talk about socialization, and I first want to distinguish between environmental enrichment, which I was talking about first, and socialization. We use socialization as a big overall term, and that's okay. I mean, it's not destructive in any way. As long as you're always clear in your mind that what you're talking about, there are 2 things underneath that umbrella. One is environmental enrichment and being used to change, and another is socialization, which biologically is very specific. Socialization is about who your social partner is. It's who you play with, who you let on the territory, and who you mate with. That's what it is. And it's not about going to a new place and being used to a new place, although I think we use socialization in that way. So just be sure you're distinguishing that when you use socialization really broadly, there are really 2 different aspects to that. And we know there's great science behind the importance of socializing puppies to social partners. They need to learn to be with people. We know that. Scott and Fuller wrote the Bible on critical periods of socialization. We know that the first critical period of socialization is 5 to 12 weeks. So it's really important to get puppies who might still be at the breeders lots and lots of exposure, maybe even before puppy class, to lots of different kinds of people and perhaps different kinds of dogs. And there's this immune compromise that we all know, right? And I know there's still many veterinarians. Are there veterinarians here? Is there any veterinarian here? Usually there's a few. Vet techs? All right. All right, the behavior specialists, right? What are you saying in your clinic about like when it's okay to have somebody take a puppy out?
Where we are, I talk to people, but it's a balancing act.
Good for you.
I talk to them about keeping the plastic bubble, they'll act.
Isn't that wonderful?
I also point out that we see much more in the way of these kinds of puppies with behavior problems.
All right.
Of exposure to socialization than we see dying.
Dying of parvo. Good for her. Yay, right. Yay, medical community. And we should leave it up to them. I mean, I really applaud you, really, literally and figuratively, because it's their choice, and people just have to get that there's just no truth out there. You just have to choose. It's a balancing act. And one of the things that's not intuitively obvious, I mean, really, it's Ian Dunbar, bless his heart, who's done more than any other single person, I think, to get this word out and to get animals being trained humanely, for one thing. I mean, I think the man's just marvelous. And two, get puppies socialized and get them into puppy classes. Where were the puppy classes before Ian? They didn't exist. One of the things that's not intuitive that puppy classes help tremendously, and I say this because I made this mistake when I was so busy getting a PhD studying dog behavior that I couldn't socialize Misty, one of my border collies. The mistake I made was that Misty was at home on the farm with 6 other dogs. I had 5 other. I had a whole slew of dogs at the farm. And why would I need to take Misty out and about to meet other dogs? Because she was with other dogs, right? Wrong. Whoops. Whoopsie. Luckily, that was many years ago. But I see other people making that same mistake, and my mistake at least makes me a little bit more generous towards theirs. It's not the same dogs. And how many people do you talk to who say, gosh, you know, yeah, but he's been around a lot of other dogs. We have another dog, and my husband's family has a Labrador that comes over to play once a month. Yeah, he's been exposed to other dogs. No, he hasn't. And not only is it lots of dogs, it's different kinds of dogs, and it's different kinds of people. So one of the things we do in our puppy classes is we have a night where people come with canes and wheelchairs, if we can round them up, big hats. Don't you think dogs track silhouettes? I mean, that explains the hat, the beard, you know. There's actually some lovely research that came out of France. I apologize, I don't remember who did it, but a French researcher painted a silhouette of a dog on a wall and let dogs into the room, and they all went up and sniffed it, absolutely appropriate. They all did anogenital sniff. Or some of them sniffed here first. But they all went and sniffed it. I have a silhouette of a cat in my office and it's up a bit high. I can't tell you how many dogs have been there for 45 minutes. You know how they don't look up that much? You have to train assistance dog to look up. And after 45 minutes, every once in a while, it's there's a cat there. It's a great way to test for it. Humane societies should use that. Just put a little silhouette of a cat up there. It's really true. So we need to socialize them. And remember, true socialization is about who your social partner is. In birds, it's separated. 1, what species am I? And 2, what species should I have sex with? And they actually occur at different times. That's called imprinting in birds. It happens very, very early. Socialization in puppies is like imprinting, but it's just this long, expanded, somewhat sloppier period. If your dog is going to be around other social partners, then obviously you want to expose them as quickly as you can to not conspecifics, but to animals of other species. Did you see that research that was done on beagles and rabbits? It was so dear, it was sort of pathetic at the end. They had to stop it. They wanted to see if you raise beagles with rabbits, I'll get you in a second. I want to see if you raise beagles with rabbits, if beagles would be predatory towards rabbits or not. Well, exactly what you would expect happened. 1, no, they weren't predatory. 2, they treated them like social companions. 3, they had to stop the experiment when the beagles were about 16 to 20 weeks old because they started playing the rabbits to death. They want to play. Rabbits who have, as I was talking about with one of your colleagues, have some stress-related defense reactions as prey animals, were not really into playing. You had a question? That have not had.
Who knows where they've been or what's happened to them, and I get them. And I'm just wondering, what is the difference, and how much difference does it make as compared to in utero, the early development?
Okay.
And can this be as quickly, or does it take, again, we have the same result, or we lose the weight?
Yeah, great question. He's asking about, okay, so you have one of those dogs then who wasn't socialized. What are the implications of that? Now the dog's 4, and you have to deal with it. And usually the implications are what you were saying before, which is that you can have a big effect on their behavior. Now it's learning. It's not socializing. Well, so people will say, I'm going to take my 4-year-old dog out and socialize it. Biologically, I don't care, it doesn't matter, but biologically that's inaccurate because you can't socialize them when you're past their period of socialization. Now you're talking learning. Now you're talking conditioning. Now you're talking operant or classical conditioning, and you can have a profound effect on them. You can have a profound effect. It takes way longer, and you can never get them where they would have been. So, and particularly, you get these genetically really bold puppies who were not socialized. They can come out of it beautifully. You get the killer combo of a genetically shy puppy who's also reactive, who's predisposed to bite, really bad environment, and then you don't know how far you can go. No.
And I guess that depends on your genetic background.
Depends on the genetics and the environment and all those other huge suite of factors. So actually a friend of mine, Beth Miller, who's a brilliant dog trainer, she's my sheep herding coach. She does that for a living. I dabble in that. She says she wants to write a book that's titled It Depends, because that's the answer to every question, right? Depends, It's really true. Just a little panoply. If dogs track silhouettes, and there's really, really good observations and research that suggests that silhouettes are extremely important to dogs, which is why Martha got bit when she had curlers on, right? If they track silhouettes, look at what we've done to them. There's this dog, this is your species, this is your species, this is your species, And think about all those, we're going to talk about visual signals tomorrow. Think about ear position, tail position, body postures. We've mucked around with that. So we really need to go out of our way because we're really making it hard on them. Really, really making it hard on them. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about in relation to early development is behavior of a puppy as a predictor of behavior as an adult. And I'm just fascinated with this topic, puppy tests. I want to talk about puppy tests. I'm going to talk about what you can predict. How many people say you're going to, just imagine, okay? Just imagine you're going to get a new puppy next week. How many people would do a puppy test? Raise your hand. How many people have done them? Okay. I would do one if I was going to go get a puppy. However, I would not say the things that I hear my clients say sometimes, and this is a quote, this is my favorite one. You always pick the extremes because they're better stories. And we're chimps, I'll talk about that tomorrow. We love drama. I literally had a client say, I swear, I feel like Dave Barry, I'm not making this up. Had a client say, he couldn't have bitten me. Look at his puppy test scores. Stitches, numbers. Stitches, numbers. I think he bit you. I really do. I want to tell you that when I came out of school and I finished my PhD and there was when I was in grad school, I started getting real involved in dogs. I did a lot of my research on professional animal handlers, many of whom were dog trainers and horse trainers, a lot of horse trainers too. And I heard about puppy tests. I was very skeptical. Because if you look at them rigorously as a scientist, man, you would never get a degree for designing an experiment like a puppy test. It has some really serious experimental methodological problems, okay? It has some very, very serious problems. And I thought, you're going to tell me that you're going to predict the behavior of an adult on a, what, 5-minute test that happens once, that's never repeated? You know, that's just, I was so skeptical. But even though I was skeptical, I really respect people who do things professionally. You know, I have tremendous respect for people who make a living doing something, in this case, raising and breeding and training dogs. And so I really wanted, I figured there had to be something there. So people would ask me to do puppy tests, and I said, yeah, I really want to, because I just don't know, I want to learn about them. And I'd ask people. So I got into them, and I got to tell you, I really changed. I really changed to the extent that I thought, you know, I'll be darned. There's something really interesting here. And I'm now like, well, the summary of where I am now is that I think they're useful and fascinating, and I think we could improve them profoundly. 4th PhD, just waiting to happen. And if there was any important one, can you imagine if we really had a test that honestly predicted if a dog could bite? Of what the probability, I mean, obviously we're always just talking probability. Can you imagine how valuable that would be? It would be invaluable. And I would argue that we don't have it yet. I think we have something very useful and helpful. Let me go over puppy tests a little bit with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about puppy tests, and then we're going to show a puppy video. What also shows a little bit of one version of puppy testing. Let me talk for a second about what standard puppy tests are supposed to predict. You probably all know the origins of them. I won't go into them at length. Pfaffenberger is the one who's credited with first developing them. He was working with guide dogs for the blind, wasn't it? Guide dogs for the blind. And they had this huge dropout rate. Just huge. 9% of the dogs that they raised ended up successfully completing the program. That's pretty expensive and awful, right? 9%. He claims that after, well, so they initiated puppy tests as a way to try and predict what dogs would be good guide dogs. And that's how they started. Campbell modified them, the Volharts modified them. So there's a pretty now standard, probably maybe some other people I don't know about modified them who I should give credit to, who I'm not. It's a pretty standard puppy test out there that we all do, if you do them, modifications of. It's evolved to me in that I have a little version I do, which is sort of like it, but not. You know, I think we all have our little modified versions of them. But let me go over what that standard test, what its goal is. That the test, you know, hopefully it's a tester who hasn't met or spent any time with the puppies, right? So it's somebody new to the puppy. The tester stands a few feet away. I noticed that in our test that Amy and I did, it was actually more like 10 or 15 feet away. And what is a few feet anyway? You know, I mean, the first thing your scientific advisor would say, well, you have to be more precise. You stand away from the puppy and you call it to come to you. And that's supposed to test social attraction. How attracted to a human this particular puppy is going to be as an adult. The next test is then that you walk away and you have to see if the puppy follows you. And that's stated as a test of sort of affiliation versus independence. Independence is the term that the monks of New Skete use when they're summarizing these puppy tests. You can find these puppy tests in a lot of books, right? The next test is a test that's designed to test the continuum of dominance versus submission. And that's the rollover test, where you roll them over, you hold your hand on top of their chest, hold them for, I noticed the test said 30. Amy and I did it for 10. I remember starting at 30 now and going, this is too long. I'm traumatizing this puppy. I'm going to stop. I'll do mine at 10. Then there's the willingness to work with a human test, which is the retrieve test. You get a little piece of paper, crumple it up, wave it in front of their nose, throw it, and see if they bring it back, right? And that's listed as testing willingness to work with a human. Then there's touch sensitivity, torture them and pinch the skin between their toes. Sound sensitivity, make a big noise right beside them and see how they react. Sight sensitivity, see if they chase a little moving object, right? So those are the categories. Those are the things you do that are supposed to test for those traits that I mentioned. but then look at the way it's evaluated. Look at, I've got a copy of one version here. Interpreting the scores. Mostly ones. A puppy that has mostly ones, you score things 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, right? Puppy that has mostly 5s or mostly 1s, a puppy that consistently scores a 1 in the temperament section of the test, which is what I just talked about, is an extremely dominant, aggressive puppy who can easily be provoked to bite. Number 5, mostly 5s. This is a puppy who is extremely submissive and lacking in self-confidence. So the evaluation, stay with me here, the evaluation is talking about a continuum of dominance and submission. But the tests are stated as testing social attraction, following attraction, dominance or submission, willingness to work with a human, touch sensitivity, sight sensitivities, right? Is there an apple and orange thing here? I mean, there's a problem. And I don't say that to harp and be like right and trash some interesting, valuable tool. There's a big problem in that you can't do all those things and then somehow summarize them and call them a dominant submissive continuum. And I think if there's any one, I'm going to say this at least 10 times, if there's any one thing I want you to get from this weekend, it's to sort these things independently. Shyness is not the same as dominant submission. Aggression has nothing to do, in one sense, with dominance. Dominance, submission is separate from shyness and boldness. They're separate things. And we're confounding them all the time. Some people confound them all the time, and it's a big problem. And I think these puppy tests don't help, because they give the impression that sound sensitivity relates to dominance and submission, and it doesn't. Right? Isn't the problem dog the shy, dominant one who wants to be dominant? I mean, I call them alpha wannabes. The dog who really, really wants to be in charge but is like a nervous wreck. You know, those are the dogs who are the problems. There's a hand back there.
I think we're talking about the tests themselves, there are a wide variety of other tests too, but we're talking about the method of scoring.
Right, right. I am now talking about the method of scoring them. That's right.
I think that test that you're reading from is actually an older test written by the same individual, and I believe that his scoring method is somewhat different right now. He uses SSST, and he gives a much broader
Good.
scale.
Good. What's your favorite current version of a puppy test? I mean, I'm sincerely asking. I really want to know.
The last one that I like.
This is old.
I like Temple's test.
Okay.
The second version of his test is actually better.
Okay, I believe her. Did you hear she said Campbell's second version of his test is different from this. This is probably the first version. This is from, and I just copied this from a book that was written quite a while ago. So it sounds like some of this has been dealt with. And I don't bring it up again to diss somebody else's work. I only bring it up to bring up that point of how important it is to keep these traits separate in our minds, because they're very separate. Yeah, one question. Sheila Booth? Sheila Booth. Sheila Booth. Do you guys know about Sheila Booth's puppy test? No. I didn't.
She does and I did a test and I should remember it, but I don't. But basically, yeah, it is. And she keeps coming back to you trying to see how the dog works after stress. It's kind of like the test is set up to be a fun thing, a kind of stressful thing, a fun thing.
Interesting. So one of the things she might be looking for is recovery time or rebound, which is very important. And I really credit her, because I think that's critical. And we know from other species, there's great research in psychology, particularly in primates, about how important recovery is. And I think that's really good. So Sheila Booth, you might want to, thank you. You might want to look for that. Write it down, Sheila Booth. Sheila Booth. It's an audio tape? Okay. If it takes 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
5 seconds, 1,
Yeah, I
2.
I just feel that you need to socialize young puppies with their elders as well.
Oh, I love that she's saying that. She said she feels very strongly you need to socialize pups with their elders. You're going to see a tape. Thank you so much. You just keep leading into the next thing I'm going to say. I'll give you your $20 in just a minute. It's just great. So basically what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the problems associated with tests, but I also want to talk, and I'm going to just talk for a minute. Sorry, I'm not going to let you talk. I'm sorry. Too bad. Get your own TV show. And I want to talk about some of the strengths, because I really do use them now. I really do. I find them fascinating, and I would just love to keep getting them better and better and better. And I'm just sort of in a conversation about puppy tests right now. So let me talk about one of the other problems or concerns or questions I have about puppy tests, that before I talk about some of the things I love about them that I find particularly helpful, and that's the timing. And there's several aspects of the timing that just need to be thought about. There was a time, and perhaps this has changed, where I think it was especially the Volhards who really stressed, maybe it was Campbell, I'm not sure, had to be at 49 days. Doesn't matter who, but there was a real, remember, it couldn't be 48, couldn't be 50. Just as a biologist, nah. Nah. We talked about differences in developmental rates. Individuals show differences in developmental. Do all of your children start talking exactly on the same day? No. I mean, that's just not biologically a sound principle. It's just not sound. It might be very useful in terms of comparing developmental rates sort of across puppies. I mean, think about that work where Belayev with his foxes found that the fear period came at 9 weeks on average with the domesticated elite, and at 6 weeks at the wild type. Isn't that interesting? Maybe that suggests something interesting, right? Maybe that suggests something that might be predictive. But if you're testing at 7 weeks, are they before it or are they after it? You got to be really, really careful about putting too much in the timing. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't put too much in them at first, because just as a scientist, you just can't do something once and think you have anything. I mean, not only might they be at a different stage in development, which will change the next day, and we've all seen it happen, right? If you've bred and raised a litter, remember I was telling you that I had 3 cautious, right, 3 shy little puppies? Well, one of the bold group I've had actually until I just left, till 12 weeks of age, and she's the one who, when you take her to a new environment, seems quite stressed about it. And one of the shy ones is like hell on wheels. And that change didn't occur until about 8, 9 weeks. So not only is there a timing in terms of developmental problem, but there's even a time of day problem, for heaven's sakes. What if you're comparing 2 litters and you do one in the morning and one in the afternoon? What if they've just eaten? What if they have a tummy ache? What if it's hot? What if it's cold, right? Obvious problems. There's just so much you can do about it, but it's important to keep all those things in mind. With the old test, I had a lot of trouble scoring it. One of the things that I just did with this litter is we did some of my version of some of the old standard tests at 6.5 and 8.5 weeks, and then looked to see how we could compare. And I couldn't, and it reminded me of why I dropped it years and years ago, because what my puppies didn't fit any of the categories, right? If you had that happen, it was like, but they're not any of these, and I don't know how to score it. So that was a problem too. I would love to see more research done on this. And I think there's some really great stuff that relates to this. This is, you know, again, to me, what I want is if I had a guide dog program, I would care about what puppy would do well in the program. Because I work with aggression and I really like people, they're my second favorite species, I care about dog bites. That's what I care about, and that's what I want to be able to predict. Is this dog going to bite this kid? Look what this kid is doing, you know? Is this dog going to bite this kid when he's 3 years old? And how do you know? How can you tell? Is there any way to really predict that? I think there are things in part of these puppy tests that are suggestive. Great interaction, isn't it? This little sweet little puppy right here, by the way, who was always on the bottom, who was always being trashed by Whitetail, the puppy you saw on the top, who was just a sweet little submissive puppy. We did 2 puppy tests, 6.5, 8.5 weeks, and Amy said, "Oh, I want this one." You know, we all sort of looked at Whitetail and went, you know, I don't know. And I thought very carefully about where I'm going to place her, and was a little worried about her because she was always on top of other puppies. Guess who's being a little jerk? At 12 weeks, when Whitetail and her would run up to a human, and she would trash Whitetail for getting there first. At 12 weeks, but not at 8 weeks. So again, sort of some timing problems here. I don't know what the right time to test them is. I don't know. I guess you keep them for a year. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking more, I used to send the puppies home between 7 and 8 weeks. I'm really thinking more 8 and 9 weeks because I see them change. What do you guys do? When do you want to send a puppy home?
I think it depends.
It depends. It depends, see? It depends on the puppy, and I agree with that.
And who the puppy's going to.
Who the puppy's going to, it depends on a lot of things. I'm more and more thinking that I can't judge their personality as well as I thought I could until they're a little older. But I don't want to keep them too long for all those obvious problems. Social attraction. I have no idea how predictive that particular part of the test is. I think it actually tests shyness as much as anything. Shy, bold. You see these little cautious puppies who won't come. And I think the best test of social attraction is you just ask the breeder. I mean, don't you just know, how many of you raised a litter? Probably not a lot of you. Well, I'll tell you, if you're really a good breeder and you're there just like all the time, then what you just find, you look down and the same puppy is right there. And you call them to come and the same puppy comes first. And it's very consistent. And then there's one puppy sometimes who's always off on their own. And you really get an incredible sense of who's the one who's most socially attractive to being with a human. But you need to spend a lot of time with them, and you need to be able to identify them as individuals. And that sounds trivial and obvious, but it's not. I've seen a ton of people breeding Goldens and Labs, and they do these little tiny things. They cut a little piece here on their right hip and a little piece on their left hip. You can't see that when they're all roiling around. You got to identify them so every given point of time you know who's who. Because those same breeders tell me they're all alike. They're just all wonderful. And I go, well, they may all be wonderful, but they're not all alike. Because if they were marked differently like Border Collies, you'd know, because you'd be able to track them as individuals. I did a project where we had to paint bees. You know what? Bees are really different. And when White Spot, Blue Spot didn't come back after foraging for 2 weeks, I cried. I loved the way she danced. She had the coolest dance. I loved White Spot. And she died. It was tragic. Dominance. I really like that rollover test. What do you guys think? I think there's a whole lot to it. I'm going to show you a video of it. I find it very interesting. I think mostly you can throw the extremes out, right? And I have seen 2 puppies, by the way, who I did this to, who at 7 weeks came up at my face with an offensive pucker. Just for me, pardon? Golden Retriever. Both of those dogs bit severely before they were 7 months old and were euthanized. And I had it happen a 3rd time, and I sat down and cried and talked to the breeder, and she euthanized the puppy. Now, do I think you should always do that? No, that was her choice. It was not mine. But when I see puppies do that, that's pretty extreme. It's pretty extreme. I think there's a lot of interest in that particular test. Shy, bold, that's the one thing we have good data on. Have you seen Margaret Siri Young's study? She actually did puppy tests. She standardized puppy tests, and then she brought them back in the lab at a year of age. And the only thing that she did in the puppy test that was predictive of adult behavior was the shy, bold continuum. Is that interesting? Now, it might have been different at 2 years, because I don't think you know who you have when they're a year old, right? I don't think you know who you have until they're 3 years old, frankly. And the one last thing I want to talk about before I show the video, and aren't you all getting hot and squirmy? Oh, are you guys okay? Can you stand 15 more minutes? Activity with motor activity. That's different. Reactivity is what? Versus. Motor activity is versus not moving, right? And actually, I did that. The Terrier St. Bernard slide is really about motor activity. So I just realized I just did what I said you shouldn't do. I'll change those slides later. Motor activity levels are extremely easy to objectively track. For my PhD research, I tracked motor activity levels in response to different sounds. I had 2 observers sitting with little handheld computer recorders, and they had to push a button every time a puppy's paw went down. It's a great, objective, simple test of motor activity. How often does that paw go up and down? Every time that paw hit the ground, they had to press a button. They did it for about 30 minutes. They got 103 times, and they each got the figure of 1,003 times, and they each got 1,003. That is unprecedented reliability between two observers. Usually go for 90%. They did it another time, they were off by 5 out of over 1,000. It's absolutely unprecedented. Motor activity is very easy to score and to objectively look at, and there's beautiful research that shows in horses that high levels of motor activity early, right after birth in neonatal foals is a marvelous predictor of status in adult horses. And don't you tell people not to take the first one out of the box? Right? Don't you tell people not to take the one who runs up to their little kid necessarily. Don't take the shy one who hangs in the back, but don't take the first one. You know, don't you have clients who say, he picked me, and you go, oh, oh boy, right, oh boy, right? So I would encourage you to think about looking at motor activity. The puppy, well, I think in my litter, I think the dominant puppy, and I do not mean aggressive. Luke is a dominant dog, and a 2-year-old child can take a bone out of his mouth. That's not the same. Don't confuse those things. The dominant puppy, who I think is the puppy I like the best, it's not the best puppy, I just liked her the best out of the litter, was the first out of the box. She's the one who went to the professional dog trainer. So look at motor activity, because we know in other species that it is predictive. There's lovely, good, rigorous research on it. Okay, I'm going to switch and just show a video. What you're going to see on this video is my agreement with the importance of puppies being raised interacting with adult dogs. What else can I say to fill in time while this is rewinding and you're hot and miserable?
Actually, just on that subject,
Yes.
when we're working in shelters.
Talk really loud, because they can't hear you and they hate that.
Right. When we're working in shelters
Yes.
with orphans,
Right?
we very much try to get them with adult
Mhm.
dogs as much as possible, because it's the only hope they have in shelters.
I got it, and I believe you. And you know, that one of the things that I think is important about keeping puppies long enough is to keep them around lots of other adult dogs. You know, it takes a pack to raise a puppy, you know. And it's really important to have sort of an expanded community. It's supposed to stop now. It's supposed to make that little satisfying click. Is it rewinding?
It's done.
Oh, it's done. Let's see what happens. Is it saying play? I hate those leaders. You know, they have to put black on a videotape. I edited this just a couple of days ago, and you have to put black down or else it won't work. And it's always just long enough to start to make you really nervous. Phew, okay. Okay, here's Lassie's litter. They're about 5 weeks old. There are actually 8 of them. I x-rayed her. We counted 7 spines. Here's Lassie doing some of that wonderful maternal, wait, it's on fast forward. Doesn't this appear to be going, is this normal? Yeah, this is normal now, okay. I'm not going to talk over all of this because I think a lot of it just speaks for itself. Lovely little passive submission there on that puppy who's actually stuck in a hole. I don't even want to think about what Lassie's eating. Can you see? There's that lovely little inhibited muzzle bite / play. A little older the puppies are now. Lassie's a wonderful mother. Her mother was a terrible mother, by the way. Her mother didn't nurse. And Lassie needs and sucks. She never nursed her mother normally. I was very concerned that she wouldn't be a good mother. She's a marvelous mother. Pardon? No. There's a black, that's, can't see her head. That could be Tess. That's Tess. Lots of finesse with the mouth. That's one of the pieces I think dogs need to get as they're growing up, is finesse with their mouth. See these dogs who bite and bite hard? This is an ant, okay? Unrelated, somewhat distantly related female. She's doing that nibble groom, very affiliative, very friendly. Pip is basically a wonderful ant. She's excellent with puppies, except around food, in which she becomes darn right rude. There's just some lovely interaction here. What I want you to watch, you're going to see 3 segments with Pip and puppies. This one, in which she appears to be engaged, I would say anthropomorphic though it is, that she's really enjoying herself. I mean, Pip is relaxed. She's got that nice open muzzle mouth presentation. She's doing a lot of nibble grooming, which is a very affiliative behavior in wild canids. She initiates a lot of play. This is my crime scene tape. By the way, my house is being remodeled, and the architects, all the grass got ripped up because of a dumpster, and so they put this yellow crime scene tape. It was so cool. I just thought, I wondered what people might think. Pretty sweet. And by the way, this is a wonderful example. I've actually heard somebody say, don't ever bend down to call your dog to come, because that's a play bow and that's a submissive posture, and that will destroy the dominance relationship between you and your dog. What? What are they thinking? Dominant dogs get into submissive postures all the time. Dominance is not about always being in control. Don't you wish you could show this video to our clients in puppy class and saying, and this is why they're biting your hands? You know? And this is what they do. They bite each other. They didn't evolve at Pet World with Kongs and rawhides. You know? They played with each other. Stalk? Did you see the stalk? Is it there? So this is the kind of stuff you want to have happen before puppy class. This is where you want to get a puppy. Before I answer your question, I want you to see the difference. Do you see that tongue flick? She's in a different state now. She's in a completely different state, Pip is, and I want you to watch her, because she's going to tell you that she doesn't want to play anymore. Much more, tongue flick, and I'll get to you at break. Tongue flick is low-level anxiety, submission, or low-level stress. And then she decides, she changes, she initiates, she comes over to the puppy, she has a wonderful interaction with it. This is going to go past 12:15, is it okay? Okay. Kathleen, is that okay in terms of lunch? Sure. All right. But you notice how she's in a slightly different state? Do you see her visual signals? Her face is held differently. Doesn't have that open jaw like she used to. She's doing a lot more tongue flicking. And isn't that interesting? And who knows why? But one would suspect that it's because she's acting differently. It's incredible to watch puppies grovel.
Has she ever had a litter?
Yes, she has had 4 litters, and she's now spayed. She's 8, and she's spayed. She's a wonderful mother. She's just a wonderful aunt. She wanted to go, and I made her stay. I made her lie down. Watch her. Watch. Watch her. Get away from me. And don't you think it's so important for them to see that from an adult, not just other puppies in puppy class? Here's a 4-minute segment, so get comfy, of my adult Great Pyrenees Tulip playing / terrorizing, flattening, whatever you want to call it. I think. Do you agree? I think. And she's marvelous with puppies. This is the dog who I just wouldn't suggest bringing a coyote onto my farm. I have sheep. She's a working sheep guard dog. She's extremely dominant. She has to guard her food from the sheep. She won't let the border collies take her food away. She's a very dominant dog. And she's absolutely marvelous with puppies.
John Rogerson thinks we way overemphasize the puppy session.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm going to repeat what you said because I don't think most people heard you. She said that John Rogerson says he thinks we overemphasize puppy socialization and should have more adult puppy. Yay, John! I totally agree. I love that he does. I couldn't agree more, and that's partly why I'm showing this. Because she has never had puppies. She was spayed. She's a working guard dog. Heat bad.
And you know the differences in how they reacted to
When it's over, I'll get back to you, okay? I can't compete with Tulip. I mean, and here we've got somebody trying to get the courage up. Now that puppy is Belle, by the way. That's the high motor activity, first out of the box, first to do everything, always at your feet dog. And if I kept a puppy, she's the one I would keep, because she's a confident natural alpha who doesn't appear to need to use force or aggression to get anything she wants. She's like Luke. She's a granddaughter of Luke, and she's just like Luke. I think. I don't know. Right? What do I know? This is the smish the puppy part. This is when you get a little nervous. This is more of my construction. Oh, I'm getting out of here. That's whitetail. I love that John Rogerson said that, because I've been feeling that, and making these videos made me think about that more and more and more. And I think puppy class is great. Don't get me wrong. Puppy class is wonderful. All these puppies are going to puppy class. Well, one of them isn't, but I'm not worried about that one because it's going to get out constantly. She's a professional dog trainer. And don't you see a lot of puppies become bullies in puppy class, so you actually have to stop? And I think it's actually good, because you can pick them up and say, what are you doing? You know, and you can really help turn them around. But wouldn't it be easier to have her do it? You know? I'll answer questions when this is over. How cute can one individual be? I did have a lot of trouble with the video of dog's butt problem, which we all have. There's a certain amount of concern. Please don't smish my puppy. She did actually hurt a puppy once. Oh, now she gets mouthy. Blaze gets pretty wet. She's forepawed it, and it was not permanent. Puppy yipped, actually limped for about a minute. I was quite worried, and it was fine. Nobody else was worried. What you're going to see next, is that's Luke, who is brave enough to get a bull onto the truck, who saved my life risking his, who's terrified of puppies jumping up in his face. Not an atypical intact male, right? And you might disagree with me. Watch Luke's facial expression. Any puppy can take his ball, his food, his stick, his bone, but if they jump in his face, he gets this nervous look on his face. Well, don't get too close. Well, I guess, okay. Oh, this is just a terribly dark video of Luke letting the puppies eat his food. This is my dominant dog. So, and the reason I'm playing this terrible video that I took early in the morning, discovering the light on my video camera did not work. So, nothing's a failure if you learn something, right? But that's his dinner. He loves food. He adores it. And he's letting 10-week-old puppies eat it. He's the dominant dog.
But is that because there's a lot of other food around?
Nope. But I'm going to talk about it later today, about what dominance really, really is. So one more segment here, and then we'll break for lunch. I actually don't remember. This was getting late in the editing day. It's Mom again. It's Lassie doing some nice, lovely play combo, social hierarchy stuff, right? I have absolutely no idea what that is. Oh, these are the puppy tests. That's how we're ending. I want you to compare. These are two Aussies you're going to see. And this little cautious response, right? Shh. God knows I would not say shy. But they didn't occur as shy at all. But they did occur as somewhat more reserved. I guess that's the very end of that continuum of shy that I don't want to say. Here's the rollover. I only do it for 10 seconds. Do you guys do it for 30?
I do it for about 15 to 20.
You do it for 50, so we're all...
You know, different breeds are going to react differently to the same set.
Oh, yes, they are. And you'll see Aussies and Border Collies. Here's my version of the little paper toss, which I just find fascinating. I have to say that when a little puppy goes and picks up a piece of paper, and rather than running under the bush, like this one is going to, away from me, you know when that little puppy runs to you, and don't you just get all wussy? I don't have a clue if it means anything. But it sure feels good. Now, Pfaffenberger swears that was the predictor in his puppy tests for whether a dog was a good guide dog, and that's why he says willingness to work with a human. Here's another Aussie. Took a long time to get him to come out from under the bush.
Is this a new environment?
No, it's not. It's not. And that's another thing I do, by the way, is I put them in a new environment, and the new environment was dark, so I just didn't. But it's just part of it's one, I take them from a familiar one and into a unfamiliar one. There was a lot more flailing with the Aussies than the Border Collies, but there was a lot less sound. Yeah, well, are ya? So get Sue a copy of that. A lot more flailing. Under the bush. It was the same day we did the next test, and it was a few hours in between. It was quite hot that day. And I think it's the same thing. Pick up the paper, Tricia claps. Hey, bye. Bye, bye, bye. But eventually came without the paper. So now we're going to end on two Border Collies. Instant come, very different come, right? Very different approach. And nicely indicative of, I'm a Border Collie, I'm a cool Aussie. I'm a Border Collie, I'm a cool Aussie. Here's a rollover on, this is a puppy that died. Oh, this is Spy. And I found this one really hard to score, although I really learn what I want to learn. If their eyes go hard, I'm like, I don't want that one. You know, if they become catatonic and don't move, then you know a lot about that's a pretty extreme stress response. Don't remember what Spy did. And now, Amy would be clapping by now. So obviously, oh, I'm coming. And so, you know, when they drop the paper and come to you, does it mean anything? I mean, they're little tiny puppies. Couldn't they just sort of be losing track of it? I don't really know if it means anything if they actually have it in their mouth or not. It means they're not a Labrador. You think? And they, do you? I sure love it when they do it. I don't know if it's indicative of, you think it is? You found it predictive of a retriever? There's a, so I guess that's a settled. No, I would say that would be great. I would say that would be fine. I don't want the foreleg lock and the stop breathing, right? And just catatonic. That's a pretty extreme reaction to me. I basically think that what puppy tests help you do is throw out the extremes. Don't you? I mean, I think that's what they do. And really, the best is a really great breeder. But if you're getting a dog from a shelter, right? You don't get to get that. I love this. I'm just going to think about it.
The other thing is if you get a border collie that doesn't shake, doesn't know anything, that says something awesome.
Oh, hello. Is it a shy? Okay. Oh, I'm going to stop this, except because that's for later. Stop. Would you stop it? Thank you. Okay, we're going to break until 20. Let's go to 20 after. Dog joke. Anybody got a good? That's it. I mean, I remembered one joke. Do you think there's a genetic predisposition to whether you remember jokes or not? I don't remember jokes. Do you remember jokes? You do. Okay, tell us a good joke.
No.
All right, I've got a traveling microphone. They have one. You know, I'm going to get to your great joke in a minute, but she reminded me, she was trying to sneak in like to not really bother anybody. Reminds me of one of the first talks I ever gave. There were luckily only about 30 people there instead of 175. But so it was like you couldn't miss, right? So I've been talking for half an hour or so, and this woman comes up just like you did. Except it's right in front of all 30 people. She comes right down the aisle like this. And she hands me this note, like this, and then runs back. And I open it up, and it says, "Your barn door is open." And I just read it out loud. I mean, what else are you going to do? Like, oh, well, I'll just turn around with my hands down. You know. So funny. It's like she thought nobody would notice. Okay, a blonde. She can tell a blonde joke because she's a blonde.
What do you call a smart blonde?
Golden retriever.
A golden retriever. Okay, one more dog joke. See? No? Yes? Here's one. Is it short? Yeah. Good. Mine was long, huh? But I'm special.
Two dogs standing on the corner, two border collies standing on the corner.
Well, of course.
Of course. And one says to the other, "I herded my first clone today."
I herded my first clone today. My first cloned sheep. I want to sing. I can't sing. But this just, it's just, you want to, I can't sing. Okay, this is for those of us who can't sing. How are you? Are you good? Did you have a good lunch? Lunch was great. Thank you. Yay, whoever, Kathleen, Trish, whoever, lunch was wonderful. That was really great. Okay, you guys, we've got about 3 hours. We have till 4:30. We have lots of fun stuff. Yes?
Should we try the fans for a little while and see how it works?
Okay, everybody put their hands up who want to try the fans. Everybody put the fans up who want to try the hands, who don't want to try the hands. Is that clear? So these are the don't wants. Okay, it's sort of warm already. There are 175 of us. We're mammals. We give off heat. I'd say try it. I'm on a mic. I mean, we can just like turn them off right away. Yeah, but then the light is screwed up. Talk about behavior training, you know, you get trained. Don't go there. It's like an invisible fence. Ooh, feedback. Can't go that way. So how does that sound right now? Well, okay, let's try it. How are you guys in the very back? Hi. Hi, guys. They're fine. They're still here. Okay, we're going to talk about another factor, or many, many factors that influence behavior, and that's current environment. So we're making a huge switch here from early development to now. Now, obviously, there's a lot that goes on between early development and now, depending on the age of your dog, right? But it's hard to start separating this stuff out because part of environment becomes learned behavior. So if it's past environment, then you're talking about an animal who's possibly learned something. They've learned that the guy who delivers the pizza is dangerous. They've learned that, you know, right? I actually had a client we couldn't figure out why their dog was aggressive. It truly seemed unpredictable. We couldn't find a pattern, and it turned out to be pepperoni. If you ate pepperoni, walked in the house, the dog would attack you. If you walked in the house under any other circumstances, the dog would not. And the guy who delivered we finally figured out from talking to like the son's girlfriend, because everybody in the family had forgotten that the guy who delivered the pepperoni pizza when the puppy was 6 months old and tried to run out the door, kicked the dog. And the dog didn't remember the guy, and he didn't remember the door, which is what is most common. He remembered pepperoni. And that, by the way, I'm going to bring this up probably a couple of times because I think it should come up a lot. But that brings up the whole aspect of chemical communication, which is sorely neglected by all of us, just because we're so lousy at it. I really encourage you to think more and more and more about the smell in relation to a dog's life, in relation to learning, in relation to conditioning, in relation to its unpredictable behavior. I'm sure you've seen that dog who's like fine, they come up and they sniff you, and they get right here. I love these dogs, right? They get right up and then they go, right? You all know those dogs? And you get those dogs greeting what is up with those dogs who go greet other dogs? Oh boy, I get to go greet a dog, tail up, not too high, looking relaxed, open jaw, relaxed. Hi, 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 hi. What is that about? I don't know, maybe smell. So, you know, I'm not going to talk a lot about smell because we're just dysfunctional at it. But I think it's something that we need to keep in mind more. What I am going to talk about is one of the many, many aspects of current environment and learning, which I've literally picked randomly. Well, I didn't pick it randomly. I picked it because it's cool videos, and I like to do it right after lunch. If you're a little bored, it's like a movie and you can nap. But most people aren't bored. They really like it, so it helps wake you up right after that sort of heavy meal kind of thing. What we're going to talk about is what I call, for lack of a better term, space management. We're going to talk about how to influence and how dogs influence the behavior of other dogs by managing the space around them. And I'm going to argue to you that one of the most effective things anybody can learn about influencing the behavior of a dog is to learn how to influence them without touching them or their leash. It's nothing like working a herding dog to teach you to control a dog 500 yards away from you eventually, chasing prey, to pay attention to you. You learn a lot about influencing behavior without touching or using a leash. So I'm going to start out sort of going backwards. So you're going to have to ride the river for a while. So I'm going to show you videos of dogs herding cattle and then dogs herding sheep, and it's all border collies. I'm so sorry. What can I say? It's what I have, okay? I'll get Sue Sternberg to send me videos of Vinny, her German Shepherd, who does boundary herding. It's just marvelous. He's a wonderful dog. These are the dogs I live with, so this is what I have. And you're going to see a video of dogs herding cattle. you're going to see a video of dogs herding sheep. What I want you to pay attention to first, keeping in mind we're getting somewhere that's going to relate to you and any breed of dog, okay? I want you to have faith that this is going to go somewhere. And I want you to watch the first video. All I want you to do is compare the dogs. You're going to see 4 dogs. So I think I have the remote control up here. Let's see what's going to happen. But is it going to work? So I have to have a Y chromosome? Is that it? Gotta be a guy. Is this not working? You know what? We're gonna, yeah, stop it for a second. We need to move this baby around. It just got a little, that's it. Oh, I just screwed this up. I'm so sorry. Oh, he was wet and muddy, and so Beth is like, they're gonna look at my muddy pen and be upset. It's just dirty in there. It's a farm, right? It's not obedience ring. It's dirty, it's muddy, it's wet, it's windy. And you have to be very patient with me and very generous. This is not a nature film video. This is not the BBC. This is unedited, and it's sloppier than heck. But it's got cool stuff in between the slop. So again, what I want you to do is just watch and compare 4 different dogs who are working cattle, who have been worked by cattle very, very little. I'm going to turn the... Can you see? Now, what you need to know is that cattle and sheep learn a lot by being worked by a trained dog. These cattle have been worked a bit, but very, very little. They're not dog broke. I don't like that broke word, but that's the word that people use. They haven't learned that well how to appropriately respond. It makes them harder to work. This is a dog who's been in training. He's about a 2-year-old dog, I think. He's been in training at vets for many, many months, and he's worked cattle. You can hear how windy it is. He's worked cattle, at least, I would say, 30 times or so. So this dog has had a lot of experience. Okay. Basically, what Beth wants the cattle to do is to move that way. You don't really need a PhD, do ya? It really is sort of sad. So remember I was talking about genetics, and you just can't get all dogs to do all things, right? This is a dog who is just never going to be a dog who works cattle. Unless you're a sadist and don't care about getting your cattle effectively moved. Whoops, I'm just going to pretend they're not here. Oh, shoot. Oh, what do I do now? Oh, God. So this is a dog who's had a lot of, not tons, but has had quite a bit of work on both sheep and some on cattle. I'll ask Beth exactly how many times the dog's been on cattle. And he's a lovely sheep herding dog if the sheep don't turn and challenge him. Oh, no. Oh, God. Watch what he does. He licks their nose. Okay, now, this is my Lassie. I'm so proud. This is the first time she's ever worked cattle in her life, right? Compare her behavior to the red and white male that you just saw. She's 5. She's grown up. This is not very long ago. This is spring. First time she's ever worked cattle, worked sheep a lot. She's excellent with sheep, and I'll tell you a little bit in a minute. She's excellent, but, you know, she's not perfect. Good girl, good girl. Oh, God. I don't know. Oh, God, they're so big. But look at her, bless her little heart. You can't tell she's my dog, can you? Good girl, Lassie, good girl. And watch what she, good girl. Yes, yay, Lassie. And did you see what she did? It was so appropriate. She didn't bite and hang on. You know, she just gave a little nip. And you can see well, that was fun. Oh, I'm gonna try, oh, that was fun. Well, but they're sure big. Oh, look, good girl, good girl, good girl. Good girl, yeah, good girl. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Well, I'm going to go over here. Beth said no, go back there. I muted Beth. Let me see if I can get Beth back. Oh, no. Bad choice. Oh, go back over here. And she's winning. And I'm like a wreck, right? I'm like, okay, Beth, that's enough. See? Good girl. So she stands her ground. She's clearly anxious. She gets out of there a couple of times, and she starts learning to win. But it's very, very cautious, right? Oh, there's a big bunch of them again. Good girl, good girl, good girl. And I'm like, okay, that's enough, Beth. Oh, there's some more. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So now we have a break in between dogs. Me and the cows are having a little discussion here. Now there's an interesting animal's face to try and read. Honest and truly, cattle people say, oh yeah, I can read their face in a minute. Beth and I are like, really? I can read sheep though. I can read sheep. So the next dog you're going to see is Beth Miller's Ben, who is actually the father of the litter that you've been seeing, and you're going to see ad infinitum all weekend. Ben has had a great deal of experience working cattle. He's been in cattle trials, he works cattle, he works sheep. This is actually the dog who is breaking these cattle. Watch the difference in confidence level. Yes, it actually might not be. It might be because he's just truly wondering what it is she wants. Look at his mouth. Look at his little display. And the cow read it. Isn't that great? Cows are starting to learn. He did a wonderful agonistic pucker. I'm trying to turn down the volume very unsuccessfully. It's not working. Making you feel cooler? Breeze is blowing. Hang on to your hat back there. Now, I asked Beth to set up a situation where he had to use his mouth. So we set this up. So I want you to know the dog had no choice. See, it's muddy. Beth is it's poured, you guys. There's, you know, it's like not her fault. This is the little edit out part, you know, this is the mud. I just thought I'd show you Wisconsin mud. I know it's very controversial. No. We're just trying to move around in space. Speaking of moving around in space. So basically, Ben is going to ask these cattle to move in a way that they don't want to. They're actually steers, they're not cows. Watch him. Perfect. Perfect, appropriate use of a mouth and teeth. It was a nip. It made contact, but there was absolutely no injury. It was extremely brief, and it was exactly the minimum level of force that he needed in that situation, which is what we talk about in correcting dogs, right? If you're going to use a correction, it should be the minimum level of force that you need. Here's the Grand Master. This is Justin. Justin is also owned by Beth Miller, and he's getting old. He's not always healthy, and he's the Grand Master at finesse. Just watch this old dog work these cows. He loves face-offs. This is a confident versus fearful, not overly reactive. This is a dog with a tremendous amount of confidence. The dogs who bite livestock and connect and cause injury are scared. They're anxious. I mean, ask any cop who they want to work with, a hitman or some panicked teenager in a 7-Eleven. You don't want to work in a case of aggression with an animal who's panicked or hysterical. They become out of control. Justin is confident. Look at this. No. Don't you dare sniff me. He's 10, maybe 11. See that great old tooth display? Oh, cut it out. This is why the sheep in Babe said, wolves. I hate them all. You know, they're like, this is the grumpy dour Scot. Get out of there. Move away. Do what I tell you to do. You cows, you go stand over there. But beautiful finesse. Isn't that lovely? One more. Okay. So I'm just going to stop that video. I want you to think about that in relation to some of the traits we talked about this morning. Relation to talking about personality traits and genetically mediated factors in dogs who are confident versus dogs who are really anxious and fearful. An awful lot of aggression, the prognosis for aggression, is mediated by what is the internal state of the dog in terms of, is it panicked, is it confident, or is it panicked, or is it in control, and is it confident? And you can get problems both ways. I mean, the dog that really sends my blood cold is the dog who is completely confident, basically goes stiff-legged, locks you with that direct stare, right? Maybe barely growls at you, goes stiff, stares at you, and you can feel the hair, right? And that's when you go, oh, whatever it is you say then, right? Those dogs are real problem dogs. Those dogs are hitmen. I mean, those dogs are really confident. The other end of that continuum is, and that's also a dog that you can get and should get really nervous about, because that's the dog who's going to like bite and bite and bite and bite and bite and bite and can do all kinds of damage. Because they've just lost it, they're out of control. And often they'll do it because they're panicked. One of the hardest things for me to learn as a trainer of border collies was whenever any of my young dogs would bite inappropriately when they shouldn't have, and sometimes they bite and hang on. I mean, I don't want to pretend it's always what it ought to be. I would panic. And what happens when you do that? Get off, lie down, oh no, because I can't bear to have my sheep hurt. Can't bear to have sheep hurt. I like sheep. Sheep are really wonderful animals. It's not right to hurt them. The whole point is to have dogs who move them so that they're not hurt and they're not stressed. I would panic, and you know what that dog would do. They'd just hang on. My little, I call her my psycho dog. My least secure border collie I ever had was very nervous about face-off. She would jump up, grab a hold of the left ear, not the right, always the left, shut her little eyes, and hang on. This is not adaptive. I mean, this is not a good trait, This was a problem. And I partly did it because I got so panicky when she did it. And when I stopped getting so hysterical, She stopped getting so hysterical. And then she got so she'd just leap in and do shoulder pushes, do little shoulder pushes. So when I got better, she got better. Let me show you another video. I'm going to show you one of sheep now. And it's also going to compare a bunch of different dogs working. And this time, I want you to ask yourself a very specific question. I want you to ask yourself, why are some of these dogs capable of controlling the behavior of the sheep, whereas others of them aren't? And this is Border Collies again. It's the classic face-off. And Beth and I, this is again on Beth's farm, and we set up Border Collies in Border Collie hell. We set up Border Collies to move sheep, thanks. We set up Border Collies to move sheep out of a corner, which is very tough because you got to get in between a big flock and a hard wooden thing. And you can get hurt in there, and they do. If any of you sort of want to play at herding, you just have to make your decision. You just have to get straight. Your dog's going to get hurt at some point. It's a very physical, demanding activity. So you really have to just make a decision, you know, if you want to do it or not. When I put Lassie on cattle, she literally turned to me. She said, "Tricia, you know Lassie could be badly hurt, don't you?" Yes. Yes, I didn't think she could be badly hurt because I trust Beth so much. Don't ever mess with this without somebody who's really, really, really good at it. Oh, I lost my train of thought. I hate it when that happens. Oh, I was talking about getting sheep out of the corner, which is difficult because it can be dangerous. And they had very young lambs. So they're extremely protective. And we actually set up dogs who were not up to this level of an exercise. This is an advanced exercise for a herding dog to do. And we did it not to torture them, and you'll see that we protect them, but we did it because I wanted to compare different aspects of the behavior of different dogs to try and see why are some dogs able to take control of the sheep and why are others not. This is just a little intro. I'm getting trained. This is Luke in a face-off, that classic predator-prey face-off where a tremendous amount of information is conveyed. I've split a single off from the flock. You can imagine that's the worst situation. One sheep is dinner, and they know it. You never work one sheep unless you're doing something very much on purpose. It's very stressful for them. They want back to the flock. They protect themselves basically by numbers. Eat her, not me. I mean, that's sort of what it gets down to. And you can see he's using the classic Border Collie stalk and face-off. So here's Lassie when she was very, very young. Lassie hadn't done a lot of work. This is a long time ago we did this. This was way over her head. We put her in a very difficult situation. Oh, it's on play already. And you can see Beth is actually helping her. What I want you to watch is the sheep. Watch the black-faced ewe. Okay? You don't want to get under those hooves when that happens, and they can stomp your dog right into the ground. Basically, the point of this is for you to see that dogs don't always win. This is when she was young, and it's very often that sheep take over from a dog, and a dog cannot get them to do what they want. Now, here's a young dog, Pepper, and what I want you to look at is Pepper's posture. She's in that full stalk. Do you see how her head is down? She's in that stalking posture. But did you notice how when she lay down, she went way back in space? So the question again is, why are some dogs able to take control of the livestock without actually biting them unless certain circumstances come up, and why are others not capable of it? And I would suggest to you it's not that stalking posture, which I first thought it was. I first used to think it was how low their head is, how crouched they are. But look at how crouched and low this dog is. She's in a great stalking posture, but it's not working. You know, Beth is the one herding these sheep. She's actually helping this young dog win. Watch her forward momentum. Watch how this dog is always a little backwards. That's what I think is actually the key to whether these dogs work. This is Justin when he was much younger. And watch how he's not in a very extreme stalking posture. He's very upstanding. He's not in that sexy crouch. But look at how he's always taking space ahead of him. Look at how everything is forward. Center of gravity is forward. She just tested him and she didn't get anything out of him. Do you see that? She went forward. If he had rocked back, she would have learned something very important. But he didn't. He just came forward. He never gives. He just has this marvelous finesse, always taking space, but without taking it too hard and too fast. See, he just beat the black face. Did you see her just turn? Little test, nah. So you might say, well, gosh, Border Collies are all reactive. But did you see how unreactive he was to her because he was so confident? She went for him, and he just lay down and went, I'm not backing up. I'm just here. And he won. Here's Pt2. Here's that sweet little Andy dog you saw. She's now going to imitate a Labrador cross. This is as impressive as she can get on sheep. Stop. And she never gets to the point of where Lassie got, of having a sheep go after her, because she'll never do anything but this. Watch her rock back when the sheep comes forward. See how little it was? Should I play that again? Let me play that again. What I want you to watch, it doesn't last very long, and it's very subtle, and I think it's tiny movements of your torso back and forth are very, very important. As the sheep goes forward, watch her rock back. She just settles her weight, distributed on partly more her back legs than her front legs. Versus that forward motion of Justin, did you see it? Even though he wasn't in a stalking posture, he had more weight on his forepaws than his back paws. And she's just going to sit there and pant. Da, 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 da. Hi there. Hi there. This is Luke when he was younger. Get out of the corner. Finesse was not his strong suit as a young man. Get out of the corner. The good thing about Luke, speaking objectively, even though I adore him, I am objective about him. The good thing, sometimes, this is a fascinating reality here. The good thing about, I'm just going to let this happen because it's so cool. The good thing about Luke is that he can get anything done. You know, this is the dog who can get the bull in the truck. Lassie, you asked about Lassie on sheep. Lassie's absolutely marvelous on sheep. Did it just do auto stop? Is that what it did? Lassie's absolutely marvelous on sheep, but she's a little slow because she's so conservative. And so she's great on trials and real flighty sheep. She paces wonderfully. She's not too pushy. But you're like, Lassie, walk up, hurry up, we're running out of time. You know, and if I'm actually in a hurry at home or you're running out of time on a trial, it's like, Lassie, walk up, come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Whereas Luke is like, Luke, stop, slow down, whoa, lie down, stop it, Luke, stop. You know, he's like, and the good side of him is that he can get anything done. And if I'm in a hurry and I need something done right away, I use Luke. And if you had 5,000 sheep and you wanted to buy a dog, you'd buy Luke. Because time is money, you know, for anybody in business. And he doesn't have the finesse that a good trial dog has. And he doesn't have the finesse that he should have, although he's got a lot more now that he's older, because you'll see why I say he didn't have the finesse that he should have back then, because he gets himself in trouble. Watch what happens. Now he's going to nip in a minute. And it was totally appropriate what he did. What he did was totally appropriate, but he shouldn't have had to have done it. He only had to do it because he pushed too hard. He was putting too much pressure on them. And I've learned a lot from Border Collies about putting pressure on dogs just by the use of your torso lean and space management. We're going to do this with dogs after this, okay? We're all going to do this with doggies. So watch Luke learn his finesse just in this particular interaction. He was much younger now. He's so much better now. I actually slow-moed it here. Watch his interaction between him and this ewe. See, this ewe has to keep her between Luke and her lamb. She can't just leave her lamb and leave her lambs to Luke, this predator. So he's got to finesse this, and he's now being perfect. He's waiting for her to go forward. And she says, "Oh, wait, don't go too close. Don't get too close to my lambs." And see, now he's not being too pushy. So he already learned his lesson right away from that corner. But you see how he's using space? Here's Lassie when she was much, much younger. This is the same time of year. And what I want you to watch, Lassie's in a very tough spot, very assertive sheep and very young lambs, split off from the flock, don't want to be there. Very difficult situation. And what I want you to watch is how she gets herself in trouble. She's walking up on a very aggressive ewe who has 2 young lambs. And the ewe doesn't want to be there, and the lambs are like 2 days old, so she's extremely protective. It's a little slow, so we have to be patient. One discovers how valuable a good editor is when one does these. Like, oh, this is why they pay them so much money. So I have not slow-moed this, you see. So you can sort of get the Lassie walk up, you know, come on, Lassie, you know, the feed store is going to close. But it's great for really flighty, wild deer-like sheep because she's very cautious and quiet. Now she's in a mess because the lambs are in between her and the ewe. And see it? Did you see what just happened? You're going to see it on slow-mo again because I argue that is the precursor to what you're about to see, which is a sheep attacking Lassie. She just gave information to that sheep that she was just a little bit jumpy because she moved her body back in space. Just, what was it, like a half an inch? What did it last, 1/10 of a second? She's about to, it's very windy, by the way, so sorry it's so bumpy. And now Beth is doing exactly the right thing. She's going to come in and help Lassie win. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Whoa. I'll go ahead and do some more. Did you see Lassie startle? Did you see it? Yes? Anybody want to see it in slow-mo? Okay. Let me fast forward to, I think, next dog. Yep. Can we turn the sound back up on? Let me pause it till he does, because I want you to be able to hear this. This is Justin again, and I just want you to watch how Justin, again, is taking the space in front of this ewe and taking control of it. Thank you so much. I don't know what magic you did. Got it? But we're not hearing anything. There you go.
There, get up. Get up. Wait, there, get up. Come by, there, get up. Come by.
The lambs. What's this?
Come by. Walk up. Come. Walk up. Come.
Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo!
Come by. There, walk up on you. Come
Watch
by.
Justin pick up the ewe. Watch him back this ewe down in a face-off. It's one of the prettiest things I've ever seen.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. That old boy, get up, get up. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Good boy, good boy, good boy.
Oh, life's not fair. Okay, life's not fair, right? Told you it's rough stuff out there. I'm going to show you a few more videos, and what I want you to pay attention to is this. This is all I want you to watch, because we're going to do this with dogs after this, because I think it's such an important part of handling a dog. This is part of the ethology part, and this is where you can combine ethology and learning and conditioning to get what you want effectively and as fast as possible. I don't know how fast you want to be, but sometimes we're motivated to get things done faster than others, right? This is Pt2, little submissive Pip. And I want you to know I have set this very unnatural situation up. Tulip returned from the hill in back of my house. It's deer hunting season with a Lego deer. A hunko deer, all right? This is not behavior I encourage. I was not pleased. Nonetheless, I was in take video mode. I put Tulip in the house. I gave Pip, who loves food and who's without question the lowest on the hierarchy, I gave her the raw bone, and then I let Tulip out. I want you to watch body lean. I think this might be on edited pause. No. Tongue flick, oh, also known as oh shit. Tongue flick. Look at how passive Tulip appears to be. Whoops. She gave, after a tooth display, and Tulip is straightening her out. And it's a perfect correction. She never touches her. Tongue flick, great submission. Tongue flick. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So now what I want to do is talk about how we can use those things when we're interacting with a dog, because we're not sheep and they're not all border collies. But I want to enroll you in the belief that this is a dog thing. This is not just a herding dog thing. This works with dachshunds and huskies as well as it works with anything. I want to argue to you as an ethologist. Should I stand up here? I want to argue to you as an ethologist that dogs are predisposed to be extremely sensitive to tiny little changes in forward versus back. You know, we know that dogs have more motion sensors in their eyes than we do, right? They don't focus as well as we do, but we know they're incredibly good at tracking motion. And I want to argue to you that this is a huge signal to a dog. That this, compared to this, is a really, really big deal. So these are just some examples, and then we're going to do them, of how people can use what I call a body block, for want of a better term. This is a dog who used to run over this woman going out the door. He's also bitten her. I think it's on edited pause already. So we were working on getting her dog not to bolt through her, out the door first. I happen to think that's profoundly rude. I would never let a kid do it. I don't let my dogs do it. So she's just going to use a body block if she ever moves. Move, dear. You can move now. So when she finally does move, here she goes. I want you to, she's not going to do it perfectly because I'm just teaching her. She throws food for the dog to give the dog something to go to. Obviously, you don't have to do that at home. The dog is not on a sit-stay, by the way. And she just moves forward and blocks the dog in space. And I didn't think the dog gave to her as much as it should have, so I told her to walk forward a little bit and have the dog give to her a little bit more, and as it does, it gets rewarded by going through. So that's the conditioning learning part. So she's going to do it again. Throw food. Block dog. What? Says the dog, and she backs away, and the dog gets rewarded for being deferential and giving up space by going through the door. This is obviously a long time ago. This is Tulip. When she was a puppy, And I just put a can of cat food down and said, no, I'm just teaching no. And all I did is block her in space again. I put it down, I got in between her and the food, and I said no, and I backed her away, and then I said, okay, bent down, gave her the food. Watch her flip spin this time, just like she did with the puppies. Talk about genetic predisposition. I block her, no, and I slow-moed it because I thought it was so cute. And she flips around in this perfect little circle, which is just what she's done all of her life. I want the food. I want the food. And I wait until, and I back her up a little bit. I'm not touching her. I'm not saying anything to her. Wags her little tail, and she waits for me, and when she decides to give space to me, I reward her by letting her have access to the food. You can use the same thing when you're sitting. You know that dog who jumps up when you're sitting on a chair? That oh so common problem? We'll see if we can set it up. But remember, when you push with your paws, dogs play with their front paws. They get space. They earn space for themselves by doing shoulder slams and hip slams. It's the torso that matters, you guys. You want to use your torso as much as you can. This dog was and just wouldn't stop jumping, and after Brenda pushed with her shoulder, we couldn't get him to stop. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I'd like to do dogs. Let's do doggies. Let me stop this.